All right, so there we go. Welcome to the first session of Building Sector Management tonight. So that's in 2013, term 3. Tonight will be a rather short session. What we'll do is we'll go through what the course is going to expect you guys to do. And then, of course, there's going to be plenty of opportunity for you to ask questions if you guys feel like it. And if you have time for tonight, we might just jump right into the first lecture of the term. Remember that this year is we're going to have a holiday season as well. So just give me a green tick. Who is planning on going away in December? If you are going away in December with the family, green tick would be good. So, yep, Mitchell, I can see you going away. Matthew, what about you guys? Are you staying at home? And of course, you guys can just click on the chat window or the talk button if you guys want to talk, and that will give us an indication of if you want to talk as well. So we do have 6 microphones there. All right, so I can see Matthew, you're busy with your audio setup. Can everybody, let's just give a green tick. Can everybody hear me? Green tick. All right, green tick, there we go. Thanks, Matthew. Mitchell, thanks. Simon, yep, great stuff. Charmaine, can you hear me? Yep, there we go. And Timothy, what about yourself? You just joined us quite late just now. All right, there we go. So everybody can hear us. All right, and you all know that there's a little chat window on the left-hand side. You can use that to ask questions. Alternatively, you can just put up your hand, and yep. There we go, and well, I'll know what you've got a question. All right, so Matthew, you're just staying home over Christmas. The reason I ask is I don't see myself working over Christmas this year. I've been working over Christmas for the last 4 years or so, so I'm thinking that we all should take a break around about the 20th until the 4th. So I think I've scheduled all of the assessment items out of that time. And I hope you guys will also enjoy some time off. All right, so this course is going to be quite relaxed. We'll talk about the extensions of time just now. Those of you guys who've worked with me before, you've got a fair idea of what I expect in terms of the extensions of time. I'm not a great fan of the extensions, but if you have a really, really good excuse, then I'm always going to listen to what you have as an excuse. All right, so there we go. That's me. I'm going to be the lecturer for this course for this year. I'm located in Sydney. So any of you guys that live in New South Wales or traveling through Sydney at any point in time, just feel free to give me a call, drop a line on Skype, or drop a line on my phone there. You can see I've got an office number there, and I've also given you guys my mobile number. The mobile number is there for, let's call it, personal emergencies, and maybe on the weekends when you need some information really urgently, I'll be able to give you some feedback on the weekends. So don't abuse the number. Don't phone me on a Sunday night at 10 o'clock, but any other time would be okay, and I'll try and help you out as best as I can. The key thing here is that we're going to try and have fun this term and make it as interactive as possible. The issue with these courses is very difficult to sort of have many people interact, so I'm going to see if I can get you guys to have fun with me, talk with me, and we'll see how it goes this term. At any point in time, if you have a question, don't worry, just interrupt me, and we'll handle it right at that point in time. All right, so there we go. Any questions at this point in time? If you don't have any questions, give me a red cross. Any questions? All right, nothing from Matthew. All right, so there we go. And you can see, all right, so there we go, nothing. Timothy, if you have a question later on, just add them on there. All right, so for this course, there's a little bit of a service level agreement that we are going to follow. I prefer if you guys sort of use the questions and answers forum. All right, so the questions and answers forum is going to be our main source of communication, or main form of communication. That's going to be easy for everybody to use. I tend to respond almost immediately, so if I am working on the computer at that point in time, I'll jump right in there and I'll give you some feedback. All right, so although it says Monday to Friday there, you'll remember that on the previous slide I did give you my model number, so if you do have a crunch on, let's say, the Sunday night before the Monday, you're welcome to send me a text and I'll see if I can answer you. On weekends, of course, I'm doing some renovations at home as well, so it's a little bit hectic at the moment, but I'll try my best to answer you guys at any time. All right, so there's my mobile number. It's on the previous slide, and it's also on the website for those of you who missed it. All right, so the assignments. All right, so the service level agreement that I've got with you guys is that you guys submit on time, and I will do my absolute best to make sure that you receive your feedback within 2 weeks of the submission. All right, so far I've got quite a good record with that. Typically I try and get the feedback out within 7 days or so. It makes your life a lot easier as well, and it just makes sense because you can build on the experience of the previous assignment. All right, so the question about extensions of time, yes, we do have extensions of time, and those of you guys who've worked with me before know that I do look at those. Make sure that you do follow the policy. I need some documentation, so if you're going to apply for an extension of time, just make sure that you give me something to help you with. If you just apply because you want an extension of time and you don't give me anything, probably the answer is going to be no. All right, so help me to help you. All right, so there we go. Those are the basic service level agreement items that I have over there. Does anybody have anything to add? You can either use the chat window or you can just click on the talk button. Does anybody have anything to add? If you give me a red cross, that means nothing to add. So nothing from Matthew. Thanks, Matthew. And also nothing from Simon. At any point, as I said, if you have a question, just click on the little hands up little bar, and that will get us going, and it will let me know that you've got a question over there. All right. So there we go. No questions from anybody, no suggestions about anything, so we might just move into the course. All right. So you'll see that I've done some maintenance to the course. So in Term 3 2012, we basically had 3 main topics: the development of Australia's design and construction industry, workforce management, and the construction industry trends. So that was a hectic amount of work to get through. It was sort of bland, not really interesting. So what I've done is, you'll see in the new study guide that's available on the Moodle site for download, is I've split them into 7 topics over there. So what we'll do is we'll go through each of these, breaking it down into smaller pieces. It's like eating that elephant. All right, so we're going to eat the elephant piece by piece and see if we can make it a little bit easier on you guys in terms of the volume of work, and also by breaking it down into smaller pieces, it gets easier in terms of taking that break over December holiday. All right, so there you can see these are the topics that we're going to look at tonight. We might just delve right into the first one. I'll get you guys to give me an indication of time later on tonight. It is, I know this is quite late at night, but I guess you guys all work and you all have kids and dogs and stuff that you have to look after. So just give me a green tick. Is this a convenient time for you guys, or a red one to say no, you sort of have an issue with the time? So green tick, yep, there we go. Thanks, Matthew. All right, so it seems that the majority of you guys are happy with the time. So I think for the rest of the term, what we'll do is we'll just keep it on the Monday nights, and then we know we've got the rest. Okay, so Simon, you've got an issue. So Simon, just send us a little in the chat window, or you can click on the talk button. The majority might rule in this case, so we might outvote you. I think it was Spock in Star Trek that said the the will of the many outweighs the will of the one. So oh yep, daylight savings in New South Wales. Yes, I am also in New South Wales, so I'm 9:15 for myself, but I think yeah, it's just one of those small prices we have to pay for living in the big city. We won't talk about, you know, the guys in Queensland and the rest of the country. We have the best coffee in the country, so I'll let you guys think about that one. All right, so we might just move on with that. Yeah, Mitchell, we can talk about the coffee later on during the term. We'll see exactly where it goes. All right, so there we go. For this term, we are going to have Monday nights around about this time. We can have more lectures if you guys run into trouble, say, let's say, closer to the due dates for the assessment items. And also in January next year, when we do the presentations, we are going to have a few sessions per week just to get through all the presentations for everybody. You will also see that I've created a tea room. The tea room is always open, and also the tea room has got, you guys have all moderator rights, so you can go in there, have your little meetings, use the breakout rooms, do teamwork. You can use it for basically any course that you've got. It doesn't have to be for the specific one. So it's open, it's yours. You know, just, you know, sort of keep it nice and clean. If you eat the pizza on the screen, you know, it's going to leave marks, so make sure you clean it up nicely afterwards. Right. The questions and answers forum, that's my main area. So if you guys do have a question and it is course related, just post it onto the Q&A and I'll respond to that. If you have a personal issue that you think you cannot discuss over there, you're welcome to just post it onto my email. All right, so the email is over there. You can just post it there. All right, so basically in this course we are going to have 4 assignments, and those of you guys who've gone through the course profile and have had a look at the Moodle site, you've seen that all the assignments should be there. Just give me a green tick. Has everybody looked at the assignments, or red cross if you haven't had a time. All right, so Matthew, I know you've had a look at it, and there's a few chats coming in. So Timothy, all right, Shamaine, you haven't looked at the all right, can't see assignment number 1. Is it giving you assignment 1 seems to be missing? All right, so I'll check up on that. That is really weird. So let's just make sure. I quickly want to check it and see if I can find out why assignment number 1 seems to be missing. If you guys give me 1 second. Oh, it's because I've hidden it. So sometimes I do these things just to make sure that you guys check up on it. And all right, so if you go back to the Moodle site now, it should be open, and you should be able to see assignment number 1. All right, so you can do that straight away, or you can wait after the assessment item, after the meeting tonight, and you can go and have a look over there. But all right, so thanks for letting me know. If you do find any other errors on the assignment 2.4.1, also hidden. All right, so let's just see what I've done there. 2.4.1. Let's just see 2.4.1. All right, so that might be one of the quiz items. So yep, we are going to have a few quizzes, and that might also be a reason for that. However, 2.4.1 should be a. All right, are you in the right course? Is it Simon, is it 2.4.1 or is it 4.2.1? 4.2.1, let's just check that, make sure that I've got the right numbering. Maybe I've got the wrong numbering. If you can just check up for me and let me know in a chat, then I can go and check it up for you. All right, I think the first one that I want you guys to do is just the introduction to the course. That's money for nothing. It's a few free marks that you get there. Sorry, can't reply to your question. All right, so okay, well, we'll check it afterwards. I'll check it after the session in any case. All right, so let's look at a few important dates for this course. The first one there is the census date. All right, so the census date is quite an important date for us. Tuesday the 19th of November. This is the date that the university uses to calculate your financial responsibility. All right, so this means that this is the last date that you have in which to drop a course. So let's say, for instance, you've enrolled yourself into 5 different courses. That's the last day that you can say, all right, I've selected 3 of the best ones that I want to do this term, and the other 2 I'm going to drop. Otherwise, it becomes a financial liability. So around about the 17th, the Sunday the 17th, I'll send out an email to everybody in the program to just remind you that that is the case, and that you should just reflect on your workload and all of that stuff, especially with December. Term 3 is traditionally quite difficult to go through. All right, and you'll also see there that I've given you basically all the due dates for the different assessment items. So they start sort of very soon, and you can see there that some of the items are due at the end of November, so that's really quickly. There's a few items there that's also due over there on the 8th. All right, so 4.2.1, that's due very quickly. That's I think that's next Friday, and all that I want for you from that one is just click on the forum posting and do a little intro. It's the first 10 marks of the course, and you get that for free just by introducing yourself. All right, so that's an easy one. For the other forum postings, what we'll do is I will find a topical newspaper article or a newspaper clipping, and you guys have to respond to what I post on the forum, about 400 words maximum. All right, so it's all about quality, not volume, and your opinion is really important there. As I say, these things will be topical, so we'll wait for something to happen in the newspaper and I'll post it up there. You'll see also that this term, for the first time ever, we are going to have 2 online quizzes. All right, so the first one is going to be around about the 20th. I'll make sure that it's open for about 2 weeks before the time. So you'll have about 2 weeks to conduct the quiz, and you'll get 2 attempts for each of those quizzes. The first one is going to be really easy, and that's going to deal with things around the Australian government, so the levels of control in the government, maybe 1 or 2 questions about the ABS statistics that we're going to cover, and more about that information later on. All right, and the last quiz next year is going to be the same principle, 2 weeks to complete it. You get 2 tries. I take whatever is the highest result, and that becomes your results for that quiz, and that's going to cover basically everything that we've covered up to that point. All right, so topics 1 through 7, and that's going to be a little bit more difficult, about 30 questions. The good thing about these online quizzes is you get your result immediately, so you don't have to wait for me to know that you've either passed really well or that you've scraped through on your backside. All right, so let's look at the first assignment. Has anybody had a quick look on the site since I've made the change? Can you see if you can see it now? Green tick from anybody, or has nobody? If you give me a red cross, it means that you haven't had time. All right, so Matthew, you can see it. All right, excellent, great stuff. So at least now you can see it. All right, so assignment number 1, easy one. We'll talk about this one some more next week, next Monday. But basically, it's a statistical analysis of the industry. All right, so I want you guys to go and do some research on the Australian Bureau of Statistics data for the last 10 years. A few questions there around the domestic product, the contribution, the economic indicators, employment, the size of the industry in the last 10 years as it moved forwards or backwards. So what I suggest you do is go and have a look at the ABS 1350. All right, so 1350, that's the catalog number that you would start at, and go and check it out. Also some information on the Moodle site about that specific question. All right, and then the second question, that's a brand new question, and this one comes with a little bit of history. So I want you guys to go back to around about 1991 and look at all the different governments that we've had since then. All right, so for that question, typically you'll do some more research. First, identify the different governments. Was it Liberal? Was it Labour? Who was the Prime Minister? And then, of course, identify the policies that they've instituted during their reign, and what impact did those policies have on the industry. Was it expansive? Was it contractive? What was the long-term impact of each of those? All right, so any questions before we move on? Any questions on initially assignment number 1? We'll think about this one again. So if you give me a red cross, it means it's fine. You'll have a look at it. I can see, Mitchell, you typing me a little message there. So if anybody else has something to add, you can just add it on there. So yep, thanks, Michael. Nothing from you. Obviously, federal as opposed to state. Yes, that's correct, Mitchell. I actually left that out of the question, but yes, you are correct. I'll maybe do a post tomorrow about that. So this is going to be a federal question. Otherwise, you guys will be extremely busy doing that assignment. So thanks for just mentioning that. And if I do forget, just remind me again. But I'll try and remember that for. I'm not in the office tomorrow, but I'll try and do that on Wednesday. All right. So assignment 2, 2 questions again. And this is an interesting one. So the KPMG Construction Survey, International Construction Survey, has just been released. It came out last week on Thursday, and it talks about the trends in the industry, both national and international, and it has identified a few items specifically in relation to Asia Pacific. So that's the area that we play in. That's our sandbox. And I want you guys to go into this article. I've given you access to that. If you can't find it, just let me know. It's on the download page. You can download a copy of it. Have a look at it, analyze the information, and then let's see if you guys can come up with a forecast for the next 6 years, say until 2020. All right, you do your own work, make it as colorful as possible. Each of these assignments will be analyzed, and those of you guys who've worked with me before, I do read everything that you put in your assignments. Somebody did say in one of the assignments that if you read this, give me a call, and I did find it, and I did give him a call. So it does take a lot of time, but I actually do read everything. The second question for that one, easy question. That's all the human resources stuff, levels of authority, theory X, theory Y. How does it impact on the management styles in our industry? So you guys can have a look at that one. Once again, in the assessment items themselves, I've given you the marking schemes that I will be using. So have a look at those marking schemes. If you want to create a good impression first time around, make sure that you follow the marking scheme and make it easy for me to find the answers. It's all about making it as easy as possible, and then of course with the right information that always sort of results in a good result for you at the end of the day. All right, so if we move on to assignment number 3, and this is your formal presentation part. So this assignment has basically 3 separate sections that you have to do. So what I might do is I might just jump back to the important dates over here, and let's see if I can delete all of these red marks. Let's see if I can do that. Yep, so there we go. All the red marks are gone. And what I want you to do is think about assignment number 3. So there you can see there's the 3 very important parts that we have to think about for this one. All right, so in the old days, I used to force everybody to talk about the same topic. That was really boring, especially if you have 40 students in the class or 40 course participants in the class, because everybody had exactly the same information. So this year, I want you guys to identify your own topic, and the topic is related to anything that we've done in the course, or anything that we will do in the course. So you guys, by reading the course profile and so on, you can go and identify something that's close to your heart, that you've got a lot of information on. I need those topics around about the 8th of December. Right, so you've got basically a month and 1 week to go through everything, scan it, and come up with a nice topic. Submit that topic to me, and I will have a look at it, and then of course give you some feedback on what I would expect from you. The second part of that assessment, item 3B, is the formal report, which is due the 22nd of Jan next year, so plenty of time to do that. Just remember that there are a number of holidays during those weeks. Around about 25 and 26 of January, there's going to be some time off as well, so make sure that you take that into account. All right, don't miss those due dates. And then, of course, assignment number 3C, that's the PowerPoint presentation that I need from you based on your report. And that PowerPoint presentation, please follow the guidelines that we have in the assessment item. All right, so I think I've given you there 15 to 20 minutes, 10 slides maximum. Try and keep to it. If you do have a goldfish, use your goldfish as a sounding board and present to your goldfish to make sure that you know what you're talking about and that you stick to the time. All right, so that's assessment item number 3. All right, we'll, as the time goes on, we'll obviously go through each and every one of these again and make sure that you guys are on top of it. So this is not the last that we'll discuss it. Every week you'll have an opportunity to talk about these things. All right, so assignment number 4 has got 6 parts, the 4 interactive forum posts. The first one of those interactive forum posts is due on the 8th, and it's basically just an introduction, who you are, where you are in the program, basic information. What's your favorite pet? What's your favorite color? Make it as colorful as possible. Tell us a little bit about yourself, but not too much, all right? So don't tell us too much. We don't necessarily want to know everything about you. All right, and then of course the 2 online quizzes. Some more information. If you go onto the Moodle page for this course, you'll see there that I've linked you up with the citizenship test. So those of you guys who have had a look at those already, if you go and do the citizenship test, that's a lot of that information is going to help you with that first quiz. It's quite interesting to go through that. They ask a number of interesting questions about Australia, and a lot of it relates to what we're going to do in this course. All right, so there we go. That's basically everything that we are going to do in this term, the next 12 or so weeks. Remember, this is a very short term. We're going to have at least 7 online lectures just talking about lecture stuff, and then we're going to have a few evenings as well with you guys doing your presentations. All right, so at this point in time, does anybody have any questions so far? If you give me a green tick or a hands up, or just click on the talk button, I would know that you've got a question. Red cross means that you don't really have any questions at the moment and you are just along for the ride tonight. So give me an indication, green tick or red cross. So Simon, just along for the ride tonight. Thanks, Matthew. All right, so there we go. Everybody's got some information. Now, this second Josh character, that's just my other PC that I've got running, and the reason I've got that PC there is just so that I can see what you guys see as well. All right, so don't worry about that guy. All right, so let's think about tonight. It's already, we've been going for about half an hour. Do you guys feel like doing the first lecture? Are you ready for the first lecture? Green tick, and we can jump right into it if you guys are feeling up to it. So green tick for yes. Yep, there we go. We've got 1, 2, 3. All right, there we go. All right, so that's enough. We don't need to really vote on it. So I'll just jump into the first lecture there. At any point in time, you guys can ask a few questions. So what we're going to look at tonight is basically a short history of these great projects. And in terms of what we do in these lectures, I'm just going to give you a little bit of information. You guys can go and have a look at it, Google some of the stuff. I know everybody's up in arms when you use the words Wikipedia, but Wikipedia is actually a really good starting point for doing any kind of research. All right, so when you do something and you can't find it, Wikipedia might be a good starting point. Don't reference Wikipedia, but you can find some really helpful references over there. So when we look at the first historical great projects, do you think the Egyptian pyramids was the first one? Who begs to differ with the Egyptian pyramids? Who's got a better example than the Egyptian pyramids? Why would that be a great project to list here? Any ideas? Hands up, talk button, chat, or if you're busy on Facebook, that's also okay. We'll just keep on going. So I can see Matthew, thanks. You're typing up a little message there, but yep. So the Egyptian pyramids, that's a mean feat that they created many years ago. Those of you guys who've been there, it's not as big as, yep, they're still iconic until today. They're not as big as I would have expected them to be. I sort of expected the pyramids to be really majestic. Those photos that you see before you book your airline tickets, I think they were taken by a midget standing right next to it with a wide angle telephoto lens. So it looks really big on the cameras, but in real life, not so big. But in any case, the Egyptian pyramids, the Sphinx, all of those stuff in Egypt dates back about 2,500 years. Great Wall of China, I haven't been to that one yet, but the Great Wall of China you can actually see from space. So also a great iconic project that we had. Crystal Palace. So Crystal Palace was one of the biggest buildings that they ever built in a glass structure, or glass paneling rather. So that one burned down shortly after it being constructed. So that was also quite a mean feat. I've listed quite a number of other ones there for you. Most probably, if I think about my favorites, I would say the Suez Canal would be definitely one of the favorites that I've ever seen and studied before. Being a pilot myself, I sort of have an affinity for anything aviation. So with the Concorde project was also really interesting. That was between the French and British companies, BAC, so Aéroports Spatial, and you know, that project ran over as well, similar to the Sydney Opera House. We'll talk about the budgets a little bit later on. More recently, the two Burjs in the UAE, so the Khalifa and the Al Arab, very impressive structures. Those of you guys who've been to the UAE, really impressive to go there. In about 2006, I took a bunch of students there when it was still under construction, the Khalifa, and it was quite an interesting trip. So most probably later on during the term, I'll do a little presentation on the construction process for both of those. Maybe also the Palms. I worked for a company that was involved in the construction of those projects. So interesting times, lots and lots of money around. The Arabs really know how to plan. They obviously know that they are going to run out of oil at some point in time, so they're starting to focus and diversify into tourism. Right, so there's some interesting things that we can learn from the different cultures in the industry. So if we look at the contribution of the construction industry to the economy, now I've spoken previously about table 13042. This is basically where you are going to start your information. Search for that first assignment. The figures for 2012 have just been released, so I've sort of omitted them over here so that you guys at least have something to put into your assignments. But you can see there that roughly the construction industry delivers around about 7%, just under 7% to the GDP for Australia. So it is interesting to see that at the moment the industry is not growing. All right, so we're in the 34th month of either stasis or contraction, see it as you may, where we are not growing. So the new government has just been in power for, I think, 50 days last weekend. No real changes has occurred. it's going to be interesting to have that discussion in about 12 months' time and say, all right, so what has happened in the industry? Has it stabilized? Has it started growing? Has it normalized? What's happening with terms of employment, all of those things? Because obviously there should be a change now that there's a new government in place. All right, so every now and again I like to be controversial, so I might in one of those assessment items ask you guys to comment on some kind of political issue, just to add some color to our lives and make sure that we don't become we don't become complacent at all. All right, so interesting things here. The percentage changes from the previous years. You can see there, 2008 to 2009, there was quite a drastic change. Right, so a negative change over there. So why do you think there was such a big change between 2009 and 2008 with the previous, say, 2006 and 2007? Any ideas? Why do you think there was a major contraction in there? Right, there we go. Yep, so the GFC, thanks Mitchell. Yep, there we go. The global financial crisis that obviously occurred during that period of time, and it caused a bit of a contraction. Now, Australia wasn't as hard hit as the rest of the world. You'll think back to 2007, 2008. The construction on the Burj Khalifa actually stopped because the UAE ran out of money. They had to go and borrow some money from their neighbors. So the government of Abu Dhabi lent some money to Dubai, and they were able to get the project going on, and that's why you'll see that the name change occurred for that tower block. In 2009, 2010, things started stabilizing again, and you can see there that it went up about 25%. So now you have to take into account that we had to make up the previous 18% that we lost in 2009, 2008, 2009. So the growth was around about, say, 6 or 7% in real terms. So it wasn't that great. It was more of a catch-up, just repairing itself. And then in 2010, 2011, you can see that's the normalization of the growth in the industry. It's sort of the numbers that we started expecting. Once again, overall negative, but individual slight increases of new residential buildings, alterations. And it's interesting when you guys do your evaluation of the data in 13042, how are you going to respond to that? How are you going to analyze that? And very important for your assessment, the interpretation of that information. All right, so as I said, at any point in time, if you guys have a question, just jump right onto it and we'll answer it straight away. So if we look at the value of construction work done, and what we did here is we're just looking at the residential stuff, private sector houses, and then other residential stuff. So private sector obviously would be homeowners and stuff like that, while other would be anything else, government, industry that has fingers in the pie, for instance, mines, infrastructure companies that provide housing, anything like that, that would class in that other residential buildings. So you can see there's also a slight increase there. If we look at that first column there, a slight increase between 2009, 2010, and then it sort of drops off again 2011. Slowly in the market. So why do you guys think there was a slight drop off in 2010 to 2011? Any ideas? So this time we can't say it's the GFC because that already occurred and we sort of fixed it previously. So what do you think, what happened in the industry? What caused this little bit of a slowdown over there? And Mitchell says the FHB, which is, Mitchell, you'll have to help me out there. What is FHB? You've lost me on that one. First home owners, yep. So there we go, stimulus round. Yeah. There's a number of items. So what you guys might look at is for each of these, yep, I agree, the first home owners, grant, that was definitely a stimulus activity from the government. What you guys might look at is maybe look at your own home state and look at another state. So if you look at, for instance, Queensland has got a much more aggressive first home owners grant as opposed to New South Wales. So in Queensland, at some point in time, you could get up to about $55,000 first home owners grant, and the similar first home owners grant in New South Wales would only deliver about $7,000. All right, so have a look at those. Also start thinking about where do the state governments get most of their income from, especially if you once again look at New South Wales. I think a large percentage of their income comes from the transfers of these properties. All right, so you can start thinking about how you're going to answer those questions about assignment. All right, so there you can see there's the last column there, the total column. So even though we might see slight reductions in each of the different sectors, it was still growing. All right, so it was still growing marginally. 37, 38, and 39, so every year it goes up slightly. So the contraction that we spoke about earlier on was not necessarily in residential stuff. So we might have to start looking at commercial properties or commercial construction, maybe even infrastructure. And remember, when we talk about construction work being in contraction, or the industry being in contraction, it is an indication of the whole of the industry, not just residential stuff. All right, so just for interest sake, there's our value of the alterations that we've had. Once again, you can see there figures definitely going up, but not by much, especially in those last 2 years over there. Not much growth in the industry, and of course, we can once again have a look at those factors that contributed to that. First home owners grant, possibly the influence of the state governments, possibly the influence of the federal government. Around about 2010, 2011, that's when we started having the instabilities in the governing parties. So that might have also hampered the, let's call it, the trust in the market, which influenced the people's spending ability or their inclination to spend on property. Something that you might want to think about is property still the best investment? Who says property is still the best investment? Green tick says yes, red tick says no, it's not the best best investment. Anyone who says property is still a good investment? Green tick? Yep, Charmaine, yep. Who says no? All right, so there's quite a number of no's. All right, so yep, interesting stuff. Those guys who said no in the chat window, give us a few indications of other industries that you think might be a better investment at the moment. All right, so you're welcome to just type it in there and we'll talk about it as you go along. Let's have a look at the activity in construction. You can see there, this is the graph from the ABS, so it's referencing 2009, and you can see there that even though it is slightly going up, it's not a very angled curve. All right, so we are spending some more money. It is still growing. Education, yes, there's a lot happening in education. Yes, Matthew, I would suggest infrastructure companies would be really good. I know coal seam gas seems to be not the flavor of the month, but if I had some spare cash, I would definitely throw it towards that. There's, I used to work in oil and gas. You can't really go wrong with oil and gas. Everybody needs it. And as soon as we sort out the environmental stuff, it becomes easier to spend that money. So, Mitchell, I'm intrigued by your statement about education. Me being in education, not a long-time academic, I only joined the, I'm actually from industry, so I've only been at the university for about 4 years now. Yep, coal seam gas. So back to the education stuff. I'm seeing changes in the education industry. There's definitely a move away from face-to-face stuff, and everything is going into the distance education stuff, the stuff that we're doing tonight, online lectures, all of those types of things would be contributing to the growth of education. However, the funding that we see from the government, both state and federal, seems to be declining. The Commonwealth supported places are going down, and also the the funding that they cut just before the election had a big influence. So 2 billion was cut. All right, so we're talking about aged care. Interesting article I read the other day is that old people are actually taking these international cruises because they can. It's cheaper than actually buying into an aged care facility. While they're on the ship, they receive the best medical care, and they got people looking after them. There's food and entertainment. Every now and again there's maybe somebody young coming along to spice up their life. So there's many reasons for them to be on these ships, so that might be a good investment. I haven't been on one of those ships. It's still on my to-do list. I'm not sure I'll be able to do a whole long trip, maybe just a weekend traveling down from Sydney to Melbourne or something like that, just to test it. Who's been on a cruise ship? Yes or no? Anybody been on a cruise ship? Green tick says yes. All right, so Matthew, you've been on a cruise ship. Nobody else seems to be on there. All right, Matthew, we won't tell anybody that you've been on a cruise ship, and we won't say anything about that. Oh, yeah. It was sick for 2 days. Yes, I can believe that. All right, so welcome, Colin. Colin has joined us. Colin is the lecturer for Building Law and Regs this term. Thanks for joining us. And at any point in time, Colin, if you have a question, you can use the type or the little chat window right at the bottom. Just type a question, or you can just put up your hand and we'll give you the floor. All right, so yep, definitely being on a ship for a number of days, not my favorite thing. All right, so let's have a quick look at the gross domestic product, or product rather. This is a little snapshot that I've taken for you, and you can see, remember previously this evening we spoke about roughly about 7% is contributed to the GDP from the construction industry. Right? So you can see there's the numbers. It's sort of around there. In 2012 it actually came down to slightly below 7%. So when you guys do your first assignment, it would be a good idea to just go and check out the exact value that we've contributed. And of course, this is not a complete table, so you'll see there I've just added the interesting ones. Right? And also in the study guide, I've taken another snapshot. I can't remember exactly which industries I've used in that snapshot, but I think I used the same one, sort of mining, manufacturing. Those would be typically the ones that sort of play in our sandpit that we can use as comparative numbers. It's always a good thing to see what somebody else is doing when you apply for that. When you apply for that promotion, it's always good to see what the other person has submitted in his promotion application, and the same with you doing your assessment item is make sure that you know what the other industries are playing with, and what it just gives you some more firepower when you come to the point where you have to discuss the contribution of the construction industry itself. You can see there's the changes from the previous years. So small decline 2009, 2010. Now we all know that the construction industry lags behind all of the other industries. So it typically lags about 8 to 18 months. So whenever somebody makes a interesting statement, and I use interesting in the real wide sense of the word on a government level, it takes about say 8 to 18 months for that stuff to trickle through to the industry and either have a negative impact or a positive impact. So the effect or effect can take some time to happen. All right, so coming back to the industries that's really booming at the moment, if we look at the students that's enrolling in construction at the moment, it's typically influenced by stuff that happened roughly about 18 to 24 months ago. All right, so there's not an immediate boom, when it's good in the industry. However, when it slows down, we can see it in the student numbers. The student numbers start dropping off as well. So this year, we only saw, or in 2014, we're only expecting a growth of about 10%. Typically, we grow about 15% a year. Next year, we are only expecting around about 10 or 12%. We'll see where the numbers end up closer to the time. All right, some interesting numbers there for you guys to have a look at. You can find these numbers on the ABS website. So Australian Bureau of Statistics, the website is your friend for assessment item number 1. The role of the construction industry, so very roughly it's based on what we had in the United Kingdom, which makes sense. A lot of people came from there when Australia was colonized. We won't go into that. It's not part of our political discussion on the first lecture. We might talk about it in lecture number 3, and we'll also talk about the different cities. For instance, why is Adelaide so different to Sydney? Why is Adelaide so different to a city like Melbourne, for instance? And Colin, being an architect, I know he's jumping up and down to add some information about the differences between the cities. We'll leave that for a later discussion. So basically, the construction industry, there's a few role players in there. There's always going to be clients or employers. There's a sector that looks at the design of it, and these guys might actually work together. Right, so we might have the government as part of the clientele. We might have industry as part of the clientele, or private sector. Whoever's got the gold makes the rules. You remember the golden rule. So there's quite a lot of money going around at the moment. The industry is sort of stabilizing. What we've seen is that the mining sector is actually declining a little bit, but the infrastructure section is picking up. All right, so we are spending a little bit more money on stuff like bridges, roads, maintenance, rejuvenation projects from both state and federal level. All right, and then of course the construction, that's where we spend most of our money. We'll talk about the different phases of the industry as we go along. But basically construction, or the execution part of a project, that's where stuff really happens. And then of course maintenance and renewal. Now when we talk about product renewal, a building or a shopping center is nothing different to, let's say for instance, sneakers or a BMW 3 Series. So let's have a look at the BMW 3 Series. You'll see that every now and again there's a new model on the road, and that new model has a few demands to it, and typically it's just a product renewal process that we had to go through. Right? So by moving the indicator light from the right fender to the right wing mirror, we managed to sell another 15 cars. Right? So the same with the shopping center. Shopping center, and Colin, jump in any time, roughly has a life expectancy of say 12 to 15 years before we have to revamp it. Put in new tiles, maybe new coat of paint, rip out all the carpets and renew it, or maybe redevelop it on the inside, and then it's going good again. The same with power stations, the same with desalination plants. In many cases there's return to service projects that where we look into mothball power stations that was decommissioned previously, and we decide, all right, so actually we do need them. This typically doesn't happen in Australia, but if you go to the US, if you go to Africa, you'll see there's a lot of return to service projects happening at the moment. Right? So previously these power stations were decommissioned, and because there was just not enough demand for it, but as industry and as the population has picked up, obviously the demand for power has grown, so we need to think about return to service projects. Now the thing about return to service projects is you don't know what you have until you open it up. It's like renovating an old car which you bought second-hand off a scrapyard. You just buy it, it's as is, you don't know what you get. More about that later, which is a sort of a personal hobby of mine, which is not a testable section of this course. All right, so what goes where? The stuff that we're going to look at during this course is basically into those three areas. All right, so we've got some feedback there from Colin. He says shopping centers, extensions, new external facades, changing trends. Yep, changing trends. I remember, you know, this last weekend seeing some people in the shopping center here in Sydney wearing really, really funny shoes, really bright. Back in the 90s when I was still around as a student and as a school kid, yeah, people would have frowned upon those definitely. All right, but just as we get older, or more mature rather, you know, taste changes, and of course we get to wear funky clothes or no clothes at all and replace those with tattoos. So back to the real stuff. What we're going to look at in this course is basically residential stuff, engineering or infrastructure, non-residential or commercial stuff. So those are the things that we're going to look at specifically in this course. This is where the nuts and bolts is for our industry, and we'll have a look and see what's the differences for design, what's the differences for financial implications, what's the viability studies that we have to do, and of course how executable is it? Is it constructible? Was it designed by an architect? Sorry, Colin. We know these architects, they regularly use skyhooks to make stuff work, and then when it comes to the actual execution of the project, it's not always as easy as just hanging those onto skyhooks. All right, so we'll talk about skyhooks in lecture number 2. Those of you guys who haven't worked with skyhooks before, who's worked with a skyhook before? Green tick. Red tick means no, you haven't heard of a skyhook. All right, so Charmaine, you haven't seen a skyhook before. All right, and Timothy also. Oh, I can see it's very expensive. Yes, I agree, Matthew. It's very, yep, and that's very, yep. So, Charmaine, what we might do is in next week's lecture, I'll ask one of the other guys to give us an example of a skyhook. I remember as a young site agent, my very first job, my foreman sent me to the local hardware to go and buy a few skyhooks, and I spent a number of hours driving around trying to find exactly what a skyhook is. Every time I asked for a skyhook at the hardware, yes, they caused quite a bit of a laughter behind the counter. Yes, John, I'm actually looking at one of those. Left-handed screwdriver. We'll talk about that later on. That's not a drink, is it? All right. So let's have a quick look at what drives the industry. Basically, money. All right, money and people, and of course, growth in people. All right. So the more people we get, obviously. The quicker Australia grows. We've got about 25 million people living here. You know, the community needs will grow, and you know, it's going to start impacting the market. So I'm just reading Timothy's reply there. Yep, $100. So yeah, that's it. Doesn't always go our way, but it's a good trick to play on those first-time arrivals on site. So talking about the stuff that's pushing out the industry is, of course, nature. All right, so when there's a disaster like what's happening in the Blue Mountains at the moment, all right, so a lot of people have lost their houses. I think between 100 or 200 houses have burned down, unfortunately. But the upside for the industry is even, you know, there's going to be a stimulus in that area. There's going to be a lot of construction work happening there. The insurance industry is going to pay out, and we're going to see quite a lot of construction happening in that area over there. Not that it's a good thing, but sometimes these, let's call them vis major or acts of God, they do have an impact on the industry. Something that's missing on the board there is war. In 1991 and 2001, I was involved in the war efforts in the Middle East. Well, indirectly, I didn't cause anything, but I did work in the industry at that stage, and there's a lot of money in going to war. Right? So a lot of money in the industry being pumped in there in terms of infrastructure projects, schools, logistics, everything that surrounds construction in a third country where you don't really have a foothold. Something else, immigration. We know that Australia is a growing population. Incidentally, tomorrow I'm going to become an Australian after 4 years living here. So yep, definitely there's a growth in the population, developing industries, and of course environmental awareness. So each of these things have an influence on the industry and what grows and what pushes it out. So when you guys do your first assignment, typically you would look at each of these factors as part of your interpretation of the issue at hand. So what's the importance? Definitely politics. Tony Abbott has been a little bit quiet on where the construction industry is going. It would be interesting to see how he's going to handle the labor unions in the construction industry. We know that there's quite a number of them around. Later on, I think in topic number 6, we're going to spend some time looking at the different unions, the importance, the influence, how they impact the industry. We're going to see how the political drivers in assignment 1, question number 1, how the different governments handled each of those actions. You might think back to the early 80s, late 1970s, early 80s, when Margaret Thatcher came to power in the UK. She was a staunch opposer of labor unions, and until today there's quite a bit of stuff happening around what she did at that point in time. Investment opportunities, so other people's money. Everybody is always interested in investing. What's the purpose of investing? Investing is, of course, trying to make the most out of the least effort. Right? So if you can have a high return on a small input, then obviously you're going to walk away a rich person, and that's what everybody's driving at the moment. Community development, community drivers. So if we look at those two, they basically go hand in hand. Different things are more important for different communities. So there might be a need for a community swimming pool or infrastructure, libraries, schools, hospitals, aged care, retirement villages, anything like that. Coming back to what some of you guys said earlier on about the growth industries. Matthew, you mentioned aged care. So if you guys do have a few spare $100,000s or millions of dollars, aged care would be an industry where there's a lot to be made. If you think about creating an aged care facility where you've got the medics on site and you've got the aged care facilities really well set up, well planned out, the logistics running well, and we can follow from other countries. It's been done elsewhere. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. It has been done elsewhere. There is a lot of money to be made there. If we look at the common problems in construction, very basic stuff. All right, these mistakes, we seem unable to learn from our own mistakes. We keep on making the same mistakes over and over again, and our worst enemies are typically ourselves. All right, so we over-promise and under-deliver, and we find reasons to say yes instead of no when it's unrealistic. All right, so in construction, that's really difficult. We find that many contractors, when it's difficult times, will say yes, we can do this job, when in reality we know that it cannot be done, or it's a mismatch of the opportunity or the capacity. And then, of course, moving of the goals. I'm going to just highlight a few there. Unrealistic expectations, moving of the goalpost, the unclear goals or mismatched goals. Now, if you look at those ones that I've highlighted on the screen over there, what do you say? What is a quick fix? How can we avoid those? Who's got an idea for getting around the unrealistic expectations or the scope of work that keeps on growing, or the unclear goals or mismatch, moving of the goalpost? There's a way of protecting yourself as a contractor or as a supplier against these things, and even as an employer or a client, what would you say is the fix for this one? Any ideas? Anybody? So if we don't have any ideas, I might just jump right in there and use a little bit of an analogy. Let's say, for instance, it's Friday afternoon and you decide that you are in the mood for a beer or 5, and you go to the local pub and start drinking your favorite ale or lager. But as the night progresses, you become aware of a different requirement that you did not previously have, and you start looking around the room for somebody to entertain you for the night. Right. And as of course things happen, as you go along, your standards drop, and you end up taking somebody home. What do you do to protect yourself? Obviously you use protection. All right, so the same in the construction industry, the same principles apply over here. What we do is we use contracts to protect ourselves. All right, so what we can do is we can always use a contract to make sure that we've cover ourselves. So the unrealistic expectations is a management process. All right, so make sure that the client knows what's going on, make sure that the contractor knows what the client wants, make sure that the scope of work isn't growing, and of course the moving goalpost is all. Yes, Simon, I was. Well, I don't know you guys. This is the first lecture for this term, so you know, we'll see how it goes and see how we develop through the term. All right. So, but yeah, there we go. Those I'm sure most of you guys will remember that for at least a week or so. So those are the things that we can do to cover ourselves. All right. So I'm not sure exactly why I drew a little square block there, but I'll delete it straight away so that it doesn't confuse you guys. And I'll shift color to red. All right, so there we go. Misunderstanding roles and responsibilities, another item that we can cover ourselves with in terms of a contract. All right, so there we go. That was everything that I wanted to cover tonight. Just a short introduction, more about this next week. Before I go, we'll just quickly have a look at the Parkinson's principle. Who's heard of the Parkinson's principle before? If you give me a green tick, yes, you have heard of it, or a red cross that says no, you have not heard of the Parkinson's principle. All right, so nobody's heard. Well, no one yet. All right, so Parkinson's, the Parkinson's principle means that. Well, let's just go back one slide. Let's park over there. Parkinson's principle says that an event will take up all of the available time for itself to complete. So it means that even though we've got a month before the first assignment is complete, it will take a month, even though we can finish it in a week. All right, so don't get caught by the Parkinson's principle. It's basically, if I have to make it nice and simple, is the paperwork that you have for a contract will fill the whole table if you allow it to fill the whole table. All right, so it will become a little bit of an issue. So when we look at the probability curve in terms of your assessment item or the assignment number 1, and you can see there that we've got different probabilities or durations, and the most likely duration is that first one there, but the possible duration is of course the whole time. So we do have, let's say, 6 or so weeks open for that first assessment item, the real assessment item, not the small ones coming through. But if we allow it to grow, we'll see that it will overtake us at the end of the time. So during week 1, and I've seen this a number of times, you guys will read the first assessment item and you'll think, oh, okay, this is actually not that difficult assignment. I'm going to start right away with it. And it's Monday tonight, so around about Wednesday or so, you sort of get sidetracked and think about the weekend. And one of your friends have posted something really interesting on Facebook to do on the weekend, so the assessment item gets moved to the side. And even though I rewrote the study guide, it's still kind of boring, so you struggle to go through it, and you let the assignment go until about the Sunday night before it's due on the Monday. And there you can see there's what's going to happen then is basically that increased effort that sits over there. We're going to see a lot of stuff happening on that last weekend. So there we go. Make sure that you guys don't get caught in that that last Sunday night effort. All right. So any questions on what we have to do? Remember a few final notes for assessment item number 1. Google is your friend. Lots and lots of colors and graphs. I'm a really I like to, I'm stimulated by what I see. So if you use lots and lots of graphs and stuff, that might get you across the line, and limit your scope of the question. Don't go too wide, but don't go too narrow. And very important to interpret that. And that goes for question number 1 and question number 2. All right, so there we go. 1 hour and 16 minutes, maybe a little bit less. Do we have any questions from anybody? Now would be a good time to just click on the talk button, or maybe just type a question in the chat box. From anybody? Any questions from anybody? I can see, John, you typing up a question for us. Nothing from Matthew. Thanks, Matthew, for your contribution tonight. I really appreciated that. Colin, maybe something from you. You've joined us late. All right, nothing from Matthew as well. All right. Yes, the slides will be available later on. If I make them available in the next 5 or 10 minutes, I'll put them on the Blackboard Collaborate link, John. So they'll be there in the next 5 minutes. I'll put them there as PDF slides so that you can go and print them out. Okay. All right. So. Will you open the reply options on the first forum? So, Mitchell, how it works is it is a questions and answers forum, and you have to post your reply before you will be able to see anybody else's reply. So the key there is post a reply, then go and have a cup of tea, and then wait about, I think it takes about 30 minutes for the system to update, and then you'll be able to see. Yep. All right. So you think it was disabled? I'll have a quick look at it, and then you can have a look at it again tomorrow. I'll look at it tonight and make sure that it is working. All right. So Matthew, you asked where is the link to the citizenship test? All right. So let's see if I can share my screen with you guys. And so let's see if you guys can see that. Give me 1 second. I just want to. All right. So there's the website that's building sector management. All right. So what we can do is I'll try and zoom this in as big as I possibly can, and I think I put it in topic number 1, or it might have been in topic number 2. And there we can see it's in topic number 2. There's the additional readings that I've got there for you guys. So if you click on those links, Australian citizenship, our common bond, you can go and do that practice test over there. They've also got a few funky little videos that you can view, and those videos will be, it's quite interesting. If you haven't done it before, just go and view it for once. It's quite interesting to see exactly what the types of question is that they ask on the citizenship stuff. So, yep, additional readings. There's quite a lot of stuff there that you guys can go and read. So that would be a good place to start. All right. So, any other questions from anybody? All right, so I can see, Charmaine, you typing up a message for us. All right, so nothing from you. Thank you, Charmaine. Thanks for joining us. All right, so at this point, I might stop the recording.